Hello, and yes, this is the new Nissan Qashqai. Now, don't tune out, stay with us, because while that might not seem quite exciting, this is actually a really important car. In fact, you'd probably call it a phenomenon. Designed, developed and built in Britain, this is possibly the most important car in the UK. Now, there are arguments over whether Nissan created the compact crossover sector it sits in, but the truth is it's made it its own. There have been more than 3 million sold since the original in 2006. But when that car came out, it had the marketplace to itself. Now it's got 30 rivals vying for buyers' attention. So Nissan can't rest on its laurels for this, the third generation car. And as you can see, they've kind of gone bold compared to its sober-suited predecessor. And I don't know what you think, but I think it looks pretty sharp. The most important thing though is, has it got what it takes to maintain its place at the top of the sales charts? Let's find out. Now, before we get into the Qashqai, don't forget to like, subscribe, uptick and all that sort of stuff. For more great content from Autocar, we're always uploading stuff and there's always some lovely things to watch on here. So, new Nissan Qashqai. Well, what do we need to know? Well, for a start, it really is all new. So yes, we've had a look outside and it's very sharp and I quite like it. It's underpinned by Nissan's new CMF-C platform, which is around 60 kilograms lighter body in white than the old one, which is quite an impressive saving. Now that's been achieved by using aluminium for the first time in a Qashqai. So we've got aluminium bonnet, doors, front wings. There's also lots of high strength, high tensile steel, and also a composite tailgate, which it's something it shares with the Citroën BX, which is not a car I thought I'd be mentioning in a Nissan Qashqai review. What's more impressive about that is that it's bigger. So we've got about an extra 30 mil in length, 20 odd mil width, 10 millimeter height. So it's lighter, but it's bigger. And for the sort of people who buy a Qashqai, that's a pretty good thing because it means it's more spacious. So we've got an extra 28 millimeters of leg room in the back. There's more shoulder room for those in the front and back rows. And it means the Qashqai has kind of regained some of the ground it lost when it came to practicality. With so many rivals, it had started to slip down the order, and now we've got greater space in here. We've got a bigger boot, so it's 504 litres, I think. It's, you know, it's pretty roomy. It's up there with a Skoda Karoq. Now, obviously, that family friendliness, that's all part of the Qashqai appeal, and it's clear they've really spent some time on the interior here. So there are lots of useful cubbies. I mean, there's cup holders, the door bins are bigger, they'll take 1.5 litre bottles. That boot, that bigger boot, it's got the same dividing boot, which now has a wipe clean surface on one side, which is very sensible. It's just really nicely thought out. The best bit, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm quite excited about this, is that the rear doors will open to 85 degrees, which is an absolute boom when you're throwing kids in and out. So they've really thought about it with this car. It is practical. It's up there, as I say, with the Skoda Karoq for sensible, clever, thoughtful touches. As you'd expect, they've also gone a bit premium as well. So there are more soft touch materials, gloss black, piano trim stuff. It's not going to worry Audi or even VW yet, but it is a big step up over the old car. It's a nice place to spend time. We've got all the usual suspects. There's a 12.3 inch TFT screen in front of me, this bigger 9-inch touchscreen infotainment, which the graphics aren't the crispest, but it's really easy to use, proper hotkeys to get to stuff. It's not all on a touchscreen, which for a Luddite like me, I really like. One really nice touch is the heads-up display. So it's 10.8 inch, which is one of the biggest, and it really is brilliantly useful. I don't normally find head-up displays that useful, but this really, really works. Now, you'd expect all this. It's all very sensible. It's great, you know, wireless charging, wireless CarPlay. As a car to live with, this is really, really straightforward. It's probably gone from somewhere near the bottom of the middle to near the top now. And that's all very well. It's a very sensible, practical car. You expect that with a Qashqai. What's it like to drive? Well, this new platform has afforded Nissan's engineers a bit more leeway to play around with stuff. So they've changed the position of the springs and the damper mounting so that they can get more vertical layout for better control. Obviously, the new structure is 48% more rigid in terms of torsional rigidity, so it gives them better location. Now, this car is on 20-inch alloys, which means we get a multi-link rear axle. Everything else has torsion beam. So on this multi-link rear axle and also on the forthcoming 4x4. So they've also managed to mount the power steering motor directly to the rack for more direct control, and they put a faster ratio rack on there to make the car more responsive. And you know what? Overall, it works. Now, it's not as engaging as the Mazda CX-30, but it's not far off. It's capable, it's composed. It turns in neatly, clings on gamely. I mean, you have to be driving to end it all to really unstick it in most conditions. You feel the whole car does pivot around your hips. It's got an agile feel about it. It's not engaging, it's not telling you much. The steering is mute, and you can change driver modes. You can put it in sport, adds a bit of weight, but it doesn't really change the feedback. This isn't a car that's engaging or athletic or entertaining, but it is composed. It's satisfying to drive. If you find a decent stretch of road and throw it down it, it'll cling on gamely, like I say. There's some roll there, but the body control is good. It's precise, it's neat, it's everything anyone could possibly want and more. Most Nissan Qashqai drivers will never drive it as hard as it's capable of being driven. Now, if there's a downside to this agility, it's possibly that on the 20-inch alloys, the ride can get a little bit discombobulated. There's some firmness. It doesn't like high frequency stuff, and we just went through a pothole there and it can thud. But in terms of the rolling refinement, the engineers have filtered out the worst of the noise. It rides quietly, even if over, as I say, high frequency stuff, it can get a bit bobbly and you get a tiny little bit of head toss. These are small criticisms though. I mean, the class is like that. You don't get these cars with raised ride heights to drive in a car-like manner without stiffening up the suspension a fair bit. If there is a dynamic weak point, it's arguably the engine. Now, given Nissan's EV heritage with the Leaf, etc., you'd expect more electrification, but currently the only engine available is the 1.3 turbocharged four-cylinder, which has mild hybrid assistance, so it's effectively a belt-driven starter generator. Now, unlike rival micro-hybrid systems or mild hybrid systems, it doesn't use a 48-volt setup. It's 12-volt, small lithium-ion battery down here underneath the front seats effectively. Now, Nissan claim this is much lighter but gives similar performance, which it's hard to argue with. I mean, you can sense the torque fill, but it's not much in terms of electrification there. There's not going to be any plug-in hybrid soon. There is the e-Power coming, which is effectively their serial rather than parallel hybrid. So effectively it drives like an electric car. The electric motor is directly linked to the front wheels and it has a 1.5 turbo as a generator. But for now, it's just this 1.3. There's available in 138 brake horsepower and this one, which is 154 brake and about 192 pounds-foot of torque. It does its best work in the mid-ranges. It can feel a little sluggish off boost, and it's a little breathless when you wind it up, but it's brisk enough. It delivers brisk performance. It's adequate. Now, in this one, we've got the Xtronic CVT. Nissan claim they've made lots and lots of changes. It is better than before, but it still has some quirks. So very light throttle openings, it's very smooth, but if you squeeze it just a little bit more, you get a surge in acceleration, which is disproportionate to your throttle input, which is a bit disconcerting. And its integration with the start-stop isn't the best. So when you come to a stop and try and limo stop and pull your foot off the brake a little, it cuts the engine out with a jerk, and it's the same as it fires up again. So you get a kind of a jerk through the whole drivetrain, and it's a little bit irritating, but other than that, it's smooth enough. The engine is nicely refined when it's just working between sort of 2,000 and 3,500 RPM, where it does its best work, and that's where the CVT keeps it. It suits the character of the car. It's easy going like the rest of the car. There is a manual. It's got a slightly notchy shift and a bit of a spongy clutch action, and it doesn't disguise that off-boost torpor as well as the CVT. So below 2,000 RPM, you're just waiting for the boost to build. So it's a mixed bag. The manual gives you a bit more driver involvement, but the CVT probably suits the engine better. Overall, it's just a likeable package. It looks stylish, it's neatly designed inside, it's spacious, it's full of thoughtful touches. As a family car, unless you really, really, really want something engaging to drive, and frankly most people, for what they'll use this car for, it is more than good enough. Yes, the competition is crowding in, but frankly they're going to need to work a bit harder if they hope to knock the Qashqai off its place at the top of the sales charts. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, turn on notifications and subscribe for more great content from Autocar.